Ditko had strong feelings about the ownership of the art.
Yes, he did. He was, creators' rights was prominent in his worldview, which is understandable in, having created one of Marvel's most iconic characters and not actually participating in any of the profits derived from it. But my one-time meeting, it went well. So
Good.
And so this is an example of some of the other pencilers I worked on well, the first one is Marie Severin doing Power Man and Iron Fist. And the second one is Bob Budiansky working on the Black Panther. And then Gil Kane on Ghost Rider.
Oh, you inked the Clan story.
No, I just did the cover.
You just did the cover, okay.
So,
Still, you were in on the Clan story.
My interaction with the Black Panther was minimal, but enough to say I actually worked on it. And a couple issues of Ghost Rider, and so on. And then I inked Carmine on Spider-Woman. This is during Carmine's bondage period. They were always doing something to poor Spider-Woman. And fortunately, she got out of those and prevailed. And then on to the next one. And then I got the opportunity to draw her myself. And these are some of the covers that I drew for my run on Spider-Woman. I think I drew about 20 issues, I forget exactly. I was on it for a couple of years. And a few more examples of some of the Spider-Woman stuff. And then more recently, I've been taking some of the old covers and recoloring them and playing around with it. Doctor Strange cover, I did a couple issues of Doctor Strange, who was, of course, one of the characters that inspired me to do comics. The Steve Ditko ones.
Yeah.
He's a character that everyone wanted to draw, even if they didn't really know what to do with Doctor Strange. But
now, why recoloring? Was it because of playing around with the technology that's available?
Well, original coloring on the comic books was limited. Part of it is wanting to do prints made from some of the old artwork that I worked on. And technically Marvel still owns it, but they've been very nice about, suing over reselling stuff. So like on Spider-Woman cover, for example, I could put the logo behind Spider-Woman instead of the front, where if it were a real cover, it's important that the reader know the actual title of the book. So it's a technique that's frowned upon in the office. And I lucked out and I drew the cover for the first issue of Marvel's run on Star Trek, which of course started with the movie. And then that's my own recoloring of the first issue. And then Epic Comics started where they had creator-owned concepts. In this case, it was Steve Englehart who created it, owned it, but I was along for the ride. This is the cover of the second issue and some of the promotional material I did on the side. And I inked a couple issues of G.I. Joe, and this issue has gotten a lot of attention. The legendary silent issue, written and drawn by Larry Hama. I did the inking, and more recently they reprinted it, and Larry Hama and I collaborated for a new cover, and I just threw in one of the G.I. Joe characters. Larry Hama gave it my name, so that's Leialoha, G.I. Joe.
So you are a G.I. Joe?
I am a G.I. Joe. Or I think of it as my cousin. My cousin is a G.I. Joe character. And this is an example, some examples of me being great John Buscema, and the duck there is the duck that was on Mark Hamill's t-shirt there. The first panel is from the Superman Spider-Man team-up book, where they had Joe Sinnott inked the Dr. Doom there in the middle, and I inked the background on that. It was a many hands job, but it was a lot of fun.
The second Superman Spider-Man team.
The second.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was going to think Dr. Doom's not. Okay, it's the second.
Yes, the first one was Ross Andrew and Dick Giordano and Neil Adams. The second one was John Buscema and Joe Sinnott and various people. And then I had a long run inking Marvel Team Up with Spider-Man and various other people. And that's me inking. The first one was me inking over Mike Vosberg, Satana, She-Devil, or whatever her name was, which was a lot of fun. And then I penciled and inked the cover in the middle, and then the third one was me inking over Sal Buscema, which was a lot of fun, which led into doing also stuff on the New Mutants and I think the X-Men are pretty self-explanatory.
New Mutants were getting into an unusual art style.
Well, I was following Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah.
It was very inspiring and, you know, a tough level of achievement to attain, but it's definitely a lot of fun. Also, I got to work with Chris Claremont, who is always entertaining. And various other things. Doing the occasional Hulk thing. The first panel is me inking over Carmine Infantino. The second one inking over Mike Mignola. And then the third one is my pencils and inks for whatever issue that is.
280.
280. And then I did some...
This name always makes me laugh. Crypto.
Some more off-the-wall kind of stuff. Trip to the Acid Dog for Denny Bear's Renegade Press. Completely independent comics. I did this with Bill Mooney and Miguel Ferrer, who were longtime comic book fans.
Bill Mooney, who people might know from what?
He's been an actor for a while.
He was the kid on Lost in Space. He was that, and he's the kid who scared the hell out of us in the Twilight Zone.
Oh yes, the creepy kid on the Twilight Zone, my favorite. I met them at San Diego Con, and we just got talking, and one thing led to another, and so we ended up working on a few projects together. But it was always pretty trippy for me to find myself working next to the creepy kid from the Twilight Zone, not to mention Will Robinson. Plus, he's an extremely good guitar player. So we formed a band, a rock and roll band, and this is us standing on the street corner in Oakland. Max Allen Collins, the officer who came by and said, "What the hell are you guys doing?" Bill Mooney, John Christensen, and Miguel Ferrer, who's a terrific drummer. And we just formed a band to play at comic book conventions. We played at several San Diego cons, Heroes Con, a couple of WonderCons before this one, and we put out a CD of one of the times we played. I guess it said, yes, it says that. And of course, for us, one of the real highlights was backing up Jack Kirby and Ross Kirby with a nice photo by Jackie Estrada.
Ferrer had also worked on Tripto, didn't he? Ferrer also worked on Tripto.
Yes, Bill Mooney and Miguel Ferrer were the writers on that. Miguel would have a, as you might imagine, being an actor, he had a very good ear for dialogue, and he came up with a lot of stuff. In fact, he's the one who came up with the name of the band, Seduction of the Innocent. It just came to him and seemed to be appropriate. And then I also worked, I have a Hawaiian background, and it very rarely comes into play at Marvel Comics. But Phil Mooney wrote a story that was set in Hawaii with Iron Man, and so we did a little story where we could tell a rather fanciful version of the entire history of Hawaii in 8 pages, which appeared in Weapon X. It's handy to follow Barry Windsor Smith because everyone's buying it for that, so then we could do anything we wanted to, which is why we decided to do just this weird little Iron Man goes to Hawaii story. And then some of the more odd things. The first one is from Sergio Massacres Marvel. Sergio Aragonis and my inks. The idea was to, I pretended as if I was offered a job inking John Buscema, and instead I had these strange cartoony things. And I said, well, John's changed his style a bit, but I'll ink it the same way. No, it's great inking Sergio. What a concept. I mean, it's not like he needs it, but it was fun nonetheless. And then the only time I ever worked for Disney, again, because Disney, part of their policy was that they would own all the artwork, and so it was only the idea of working for Disney, plus Roger Rabbit was a fun movie, and I got to work with Rick Hoberg, who I worked with on Star Wars earlier. So that's my inking over Rick Hoberg for the first issue of Roger Rabbit, and it certainly is ironic that technically I only worked for them once, but now I get all my checks from Disney. A short run series that I did for Marvel with Elaine Lee writing it, editor Larry Hama, called Steel Town Rockers. It only lasted 6 issues because right in the middle of it, Larry Hama decided that he'd go to work for DC Comics instead of Marvel Comics. So that project kind of petered out, but it was fun to work on, so I just thought I'd throw that one into this little known series. And then I got the opportunity to draw The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which was a lot of fun. And the high point for me was getting to meet Douglas Adams. And we went out for a sushi dinner afterwards. I got to thank him for all the fish, which,
For the uninformed in the room, so long and thanks for all the fish as he does out.
he knew it was coming. I had to say it.
You had to. How could you not?
He was very nice, as you could imagine.
So how many people I know who met Douglas Adams, hung out with him, and the story at some point turns into, and then we went for drinks. Sandman! It's getting some attention now.
And then I probably am the person who worked on Sandman the least, but it was my introduction to the Vertigo people. And it actually is an accident that I ended up working on Sandman because I was visiting my friend Brian Talbot at his home in England. We were about to go to a convention, but he couldn't go until he finished up World's End. There were 2 pages to go. In those days, he was waiting for a fax from Neil Gaiman for the script for the last 2 pages because he had no idea what he was supposed to draw. Anyway, to help him get to the convention on time, I helped him out by inking 2 of the pages. We were up all night. the editor said, oh, that wasn't bad. Maybe we should hire him again. Which, we can go on to the next one.
Well, we got about 9 minutes left, so I just want to make sure, is there one you really want to hit before we go to questions?
Well, if we only have 9 minutes, let's just go through some more.
All right.
I remember, so I got to work on other Vertigo books, drawing Petrifacts, drawing Madreading, inking Dead Boy Detectives with over Brian Talbot. We've gone to the next. More projects, Kronos, Nevada, that was Steve Gerber, my inking on these various books. Let's keep going. And then eventually it led to working on Fables, and this is a prose book that Bill Willingham wrote and my illustrations. Keep going. And these are a couple of pages of my inking over Mark Buckingham. The first one is from the first run, and the second one is from the currently running Fable stories, and I think this page has not even been printed yet. It's from the next issue out. It's a little hard to tell what it is without the color, which is deliberate, because that way I can't be accused of giving away anything. And this is just a nice spread. Mark Buckingham's pencils, my inks, Lee Luffridge doing the color. And one more.
Finally.
This was from issue 150 of Fables, which was the end of the first series, and I got to do the illustration closing out the entire run with this cute little bit. And it seemed like a good way to end the PowerPoint. So, yeah.
All right.
Questions?
All right, questions, comments, praise, yes.
You talked right at the beginning, you were saying, you said that right at the beginning about Jim Starlin being really tight pencils.
Yes.
And inking over that. I guess you talked a little bit about it, but do you have a preference of loose pencils versus tight? Because you're obviously a very gifted artist in your own right, and as an inker, if you're just tracing right over, that's one kind of skill.
Sure.
But, you know.
Yes, those of us in the pen inking biz used to joke that you could just pour ink in one end of Starlin's pencil pages and the ink would just flow into the grooves from his head. It was a little more subtle than that, but no, when he first offered me work, his pencils were super tight, so really I just had to do a neat job tracing off what he had drawn. But as the series went on, he wanted to do less penciling. So by the end of the run, he was doing very loose layouts, and I was doing finished art. And after having worked on, 20, 40, 60 pages of his pencils, I had a pretty good feeling for what he had in mind. We mentioned earlier trying to figure out what the penciler has in mind. So I knew what Starlin had in mind, and I could emulate the kind of work that he was going for. So as the series went on, by the end of it, like I said, some of his pencilings were very loose. In fact, the last issue that he worked on, he was having a bit of a dispute with some of his editors, and so he quit halfway through it. And so it was, the first page was penciled and inked by Jim, because he had planned to do the whole thing himself, but then he quit. So by the end of this, the issue, there were just these bubble figures like, this is Warlock, this is whoever, and very little was actually drawn. So it's like, the beginning of the issue is 100% Starlin, and by the end of the issue, it's like 25% Starlin, 75% my stuff. But that's what I meant by learning on the job. I was studying this stuff very intently, trying to get a sense of Starlin's drawing style and how to figure out what to do. I don't know if that explains it, but...
Thank you. Someone else, yes, right back there.
particularly on Fables. What was the creative relationship between you, say, like between you and Mark Buckingham and William and the editor Shelley Vaughn? Like who, like were you kind of creating with everybody, or you get kind of direction more from one person, another, or?
It's hard to put it into words. Most of the collaboration was between Mark Buckingham and Bill Willingham. Pretty much they left me to my own devices. One of the things I liked about Fables was that there were a lot of guest artists, and everyone had their own version of these characters. And in the Fables world, whatever you felt like doing was fine. So there was a lot of leeway for everybody just having fun and doing it however they felt like doing it. So, but Shelley Vaughn was a very good editor. She was, well, corralling all the, you know, like herding cats or working on a book like that. But she managed to get it through 150 issues without missing a single one. So that was, she did an excellent job.
Maybe one more, depending on how long the answer needs to be. Yes? Yeah, 2 minutes.
While you were doing your artwork, were there any elements that seeped into any dreams or nightmares that you had the night afterwards when you finally did get to sleep?
Well, only about missing deadlines, not the work itself. It's like you're still in high school and you haven't studied for the test, and you're not even sure what the test is about. So, or you've shown up without your clothes, you know. But it wasn't content. There was no spillage over in that sense. So.
It's interesting thinking how universal that type of dream is, but you know, with you it has to do with I didn't get this inked in time.
Yes. Well, in my younger days, when we all had much more energy, there were many all-nighters. So to get these things done on time, and we actually always did meet our deadlines, which was a miracle in hindsight. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Where can people find you here at the convention or online?